Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Now you will see that purple shoe. I didn't record, I forgot to do it, but this is part 2, and I remembered for the most of the shoes to actually get it on film, so you'll have to enjoy that. But I do end up doing other touches on it, so you will be able to see some of the finer details. I'm just adding water to this shoe now. I'm using the wet on wet method at first, and then when I add later details, I do the wet on dry method. I'm using this blue, as you can see in each video that I use roughly the same colors. I sometimes mix them like on the paper, but rarely in the pan itself, because I love those colors. I'm a more of like those muted earthy tones I kind of feel like they have. So that is what you will see in a lot of my videos. In this video, just as in part 2, you can see me trying different camera angles. This is the regular angle that I recorded in. I usually flip it around so you guys can see my point of view, as I did right now. This is the kind of shoe, if you guys wear Clarks, I know that's kind of an old person thing, but I wear Clarks. They're comfortable. They're not always the most latest trend that these youth are wearing, but I most definitely love the shoe. Very comfortable. I'm going for this green, almost as if, not to be nasty, but like a diarrhea green, if you can imagine that. You know what I'm talking about. Not to really gross anyone out. Sorry if anyone's eating lunch. At first, everything is going to be looking very plain because it's just one coat on it, but I will be adding some depth in future layers. As you can see right now, I am adding more greens to this to make it darker so that there's some shadows in their light part. The part where I'm not going over is like the sole of the foot, and that is going to be the lightest, and you're like, oh, but the sole is furthest away from the sun or the light source, it should be darker. And while that's true, yes, many soles on shoes are white, so that is what I'm trying to emulate without using white, since the shoe is just all green. I am hopping back over to this blue shoe and adding some purple to give it some highlight. For this, I decided to use warm, cool colors instead of any shading with like black or gray. I'm just using cool colors to really make this one cohesive piece. So you'll see me using purples, greens, blues all throughout. I don't use any blacks or whatever. Now, I remember when I was much younger, so not in art school, but like elementary school, my teachers had us learn the difference between, what's a primary color, secondary color, and then we make different art with just using warm colors, which is like your reds, your oranges, your yellows, versus using cool colors. And the next video that I upload, or it might be in a couple videos, because I also have coming up, so to stay tuned, I have me designing my logos, and I want to show you guys that. But in an upcoming video, I'll say, I definitely want to show you guys me using just warm colors. You have to excuse if you hear the fire truck in the background. This is just a busy city and fire trucks are out, you know. Some of you are probably thinking, oh, I liked when you could see the light purple and it wasn't just another shade of blue. But the purple is kind of supposed to be like a highlight of the shoe. I'm not using any other colors besides these cool colors, so that was the only way I could make it have it differentiated if I use the color under it. So I let the purple dry, and then I'm going back in to add green to give it a little more balance and complexity. This is the sole of the shoe, and I'm just adding it all around here, as you can see. Believe it or not, the same green that I used for the sole, I also used for the laces. It just looks lighter because there was no purple when I was painting the laces. It was just the background of the paper. As you can see now, I'm going in with this blue that clearly, when I put it on the paper, you can see does not have enough water because it is super saturated. But I am trying to give some depth to the shoe because it kind of looks flat and dull, and I just use one tone to cover it all. And I want to make sure that you can see that design, like there's almost a circle at the top of the shoe, because there is like, the shoe that I was looking at had like this plasticky part, and I wanted to convey that. As you can see, I'm going in with blue and green to add dimension to it. The inside of the shoe, you know how when you look down the shoe it looks black? Obviously, not using black here, so I am just trying to make a darker color. I think it works pretty well. I almost think I went a little too dark. Either way, I decided to use that same green color to add the holes in where you'd put the shoelaces to the purple shoe. So my main goal here is to paint the inside of the shoe. You could see on the first go around, I left it the color of the page, but this time I'm not only going over the inside of the shoe but also the outside of the shoe, so that it can give some contrast from the inside from the outside versus based on how dark and light it is. At the curve of the shoe, I made 3 little steps, and you'll see right now I go in with green to make that darker so that there's some variation so you can see where the shoe would bend. So while I was painting this shoe, I was very strategic in making sure that none of the colors would be overlapping. For example, no blue on blue, so one shoe that has blue, the next one wouldn't if they were touching, which is why this shoe mainly has green, because I use blue for the right shoe, and then on the left side I use purple mainly, with the exception of the green sole. But the green that I end up using on this shoe is a little lighter than the green that I ended up using on the purple shoe. I decided to go for that dot effect. You know how some shoes are like made of mesh? That is kind of what I'm going for, and I don't end up actually painting the shoe all the way in. I think it does go in and contribute to the mesh look, but if I really wanted to push it, I would go in with colored pencils, but I didn't think it needed. It's kind of a cute cartoony drawing, and so this satisfies what I was trying to achieve. I have to ask, what's your guys' favorite shoe to wear? Because personally, I love like a good regular gym shoe. My mom would always complain as a kid. She'd be like, you need to get some actual shoes, because I'd always wear gym shoes no matter what. Going to a sporting event, going to school, going to church, I would just always wear my good old gym shoes. In a moment, you'll see me add blue to the top of the shoe, but I did not clean my brush, so it kind of looks a little bit murky, and I don't think the green next to it was fully dry. That's the one thing about watercolor, you have to make sure that it's fully dry, but in comparison to some of the other paints, I know it does dry faster than like most. I just am not patient, which is obviously why I chose one of them that dries the fastest, because I most definitely need it. I want to get my paintings done kind of fast because I usually do it on the weekend. So I have time, but I also I want to get other things done on the weekend. You know what I mean? If you're wondering why I decided to add blue here instead of just a darker green, it's because, as I said earlier, I don't want any colors competing with each other. And since the sole of the shoe to the left of it has a green sole, I didn't want it competing. So I had to add a blue base layer so that when I added green on top of it, it would look very different. It would have like a blue hue to it, if that makes sense. Because as you can see, the one to the left kind of looks earthy versus the other one that's on the middle shoe looks aqua green. And of course, I noticed that the top of the shoe had that muddy look that I was not into, so I fixed it up with that darker green. So then I head right over to the purple shoe to add some shading to it. I give it to the front and the back. At first, I was just going to leave it like this, but it didn't look realistic. These lines are just too harsh, so I go in and try to naturally fade them out, which is what you'll see me doing with just dragging the watercolor along so that it naturally fades out. And I was having a problem, as you could see, like you could see my brush strokes, which obviously wouldn't naturally occur, so I'm like, more of the shoe ended up darker than I wanted it, but at least it looks more natural, like a fade, and that is what I am ultimately going for. Now I decide that the heel of the shoe needs a little more contrast, so instead of adding more purple, I just use whatever purple is left over and go over that area. Of course, I darken up the lip of the shoe just to give it some contrast between the side of the shoe. That's really was the main effect. And I go in with more purple, as you can see in this clip, and add it to the areas that I originally wanted to be shaded. So this next shoe is a sandal, or not necessarily a flip-flop, but I want to call it that. And when I think about these shoes, I usually think about the summer because that's when I normally wear them. And in the summer, tie-dye is a huge thing. So, of course, that's what I'm going for. And smart old me forgot to show me painting the first green. But I'd end up going over it. So, hopefully you guys can forgive me for that. But the three main colors I use for this one are purple, blue, and green. Simply because that's just what I've been using throughout this entire thing. But I really should have added some depth to it, but I didn't. I just did the plain basic tie-dye. But I think it works well because the colors are allowed to bleed into each other a bit, which is a nice look. While this last shoe probably looks the funkiest of them all, I really did justice to it when it comes to the painting of it. It's the one that I just kind of had no thoughts, just did whatever felt natural and right to me in the moment. And the painting obviously drops it all together, but ultimately the line work that I end up doing on this makes it look magnificent. Honestly, I did it off camera, but I will show you at the end, and I will be doing the line work of other shoes on this page, so definitely keep watching till that. I am sorry, but you will get to see it. It does look beautiful, and I think you'll just be very amazed. As you can see, it looks like I'm going with all different colors, and I do end up using blue on it, but it cuts halfway through. And I thought I inked this one, but it was one of the ones that I actually didn't ink. So that should be so fun and exciting. And in the next clip, which this one cuts short because I forgot to film all of it. Okay, as promised, here I am showing you guys inking what's left over. As you can see, the three main shoes have already been inked. I'm going to put this in ×2 speed. This is currently what it is on, if you can believe that or not. And then play some music because there's not much else to really say about it. But I will hop back in at the end to show you my finished product. Hope you guys enjoy. Oop, hey, it's me again. The one thing I wanted to say before I popped off and just let you guys see me do my thing is the main microns that I'm using. I first go in with a 0.3, and then for the thicker line weight, I'll go to a 0.8. I'm getting very, very thin lines. I'll use a 0.05, but I don't tend to use the other micron than this one. A common technique that you'll notice me doing here is using some cross hatching just to indicate some simple shadowing without having to use any actual colors to do it. As you can see, I add little lines and it gives the texture. It's kind of like a cactus if you think about it, like the prickly things of a cactus, which is kind of appropriate to me because the shoe is green like a cactus. So I thought it needed a little something extra, and the texture is just what I went for. Okay guys, here I am, finished everything. I'm giving you a close-up of everything I drew so you can see all the minuscule details. And then very soon I'll do back out so that you can see everything at once. If you stayed this far, like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week. Bye!